On.
Thank you. Yes, this is the Public and Safety Traffic Committee meeting, Thursday, March 4th, 2021, and we're starting at 6:15 p.m. I will start sharing the agenda shortly. All right, so now we have the agenda. I start with the roll call. David Balin.
Present.
Gabriel Kenlian.
Here.
Thank you. So this is the committee meeting, which is basically, it's open to the public, stakeholders, and it's going to be a presentation per the agenda. If we have any other board members, they can listen and tune in. However, they cannot be participating in any discussions. At this time, if there is any representatives of elected officials or city departments that would like to make comments, please raise your hand. So just to note for the record, I did invite Assemblywoman Suzette Valadares, and I invited Congressman Mike Garcia. Plus invitation was extended to CD12 and the county, different departments. Okay, so I guess I don't have any officials. We can proceed with the next item. And now the floor is open for Agenda 5. Public comments on items that are not on the agenda and are within the purview of this board. So please raise your hand in the participant. Okay, well, this is easy. We're progressing very fast.
We're ahead of schedule now.
Ahead of schedule. Oh, Glenn raised his hand.
Oh, there goes the schedule.
Go ahead, Glenn.
Just a quick question. You're recording the meeting. Do you put the link on your website for the committee meetings? Or how do you make that available?
They're on YouTube. Port Ranch Neighborhood Council, YouTube.
Okay. For committees too?
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
If they decide to record, which they
Okay.
should be.
It's specifically for this meeting. It's being recorded and you'll post on YouTube. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you, Glenn.
Thank you, Glenn. Okay, so next is item agenda 6, which is the main presentation by the Alicio Canyon Disaster Health Research Study Community Advisory Group, the CAG. And the reason we have it separate, because there is a lot of questions for me personally, committee members, stakeholders, and we feel that the time allocated through the regular meeting is not adequate enough. So we felt that we should have a standalone meeting where we have it today. And I thank the members of the CAG for sparing this time to take the time to present to us and bring us up to speed. And with that, I will be adding Craig to present.
Assad, really
Yes.
quick. I'm gonna log out of here, but I'm gonna come back in. So just
Yes.
bring me in, keep an eye on, thank you.
Right. I will look for you. Okay, Craig, and let me see if I find Andrew. I don't find Andrew. Good evening, Craig.
Good evening.
Thank you for joining us and taking the time to bring us up to speed. We appreciate it always. And is Andrew joining us or?
Yeah, he might be running a little bit late. If you could also add Dr. Nordella as a panelist, that would be very helpful.
Okay, let me see. I see him. Yes. Great. And let me adjust how the sharing is. Okay. So let me
Andrew's in.
stop sharing. Huh?
Andrew's in too.
Oh, okay. I'll bring him in. Or you can bring him in, Gabriel, as panelist. You know how? Yes? Okay. And Craig, now you can share. Go ahead.
Okay.
Oh, you're already ahead of me.
You're running a great meeting. You're so far ahead. Yeah, Assad and the subcommittee and all that are present from the PRNC, thank you very much. I have to agree, and I'm glad we're doing this. The monthly meetings were just not the right venue to tackle a subject of this magnitude. So I applaud you guys for organizing a special meeting. So without further ado, I just wanted to make sure thank yous are sent to the right folk, and we can jump in. You can see my screen. You can hear me okay? Terrific. Let's get going. So I don't know how many PRNC members are on, but maybe I was expecting more. Is it just Assad and Gabriel from the PRNC at the moment?
Let me check.
I see Becky logged in, and I'll let you know as we progress. But you can, if you click participant, you could see. So far, we have Becky, and that's it. Maybe because we're running ahead of a schedule, they haven't logged in.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense. So I do see participants now, so I can answer my own question. Thank you.
Yes.
So while I'm kind of queuing this up a little bit, what we were hoping to do was really, because this is for your guys' benefit, this is for the Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council's benefit. So if you guys could think of and just blurt out what questions you have, and we're not going to answer them right away. We just want to get them on the board. And Andrew, I see you're available now. Could you please put them in the chat? And it's just, we want to know the status of where things are. We want to know what's happening with the chemical, whatever it is, because we want to make sure we get your issues on the board and we answer them. So that's really what we hope to accomplish tonight by just taking the stakeholders and bringing you through, to bring you up to speed and get you informed, but most importantly, to make sure you answer your questions. So I stalled enough to give you some time to think about what you might want to ask. So please just brainstorm for a moment. Anyone want to start us off? We're going to capture them in the chat.
Okay, so for me personally, I would like to know where we are today, what we have achieved, what's in the timeline, what we're missing, where we're heading, and of course, how can we as PRNC help you get wherever you are or what you're missing, if that helps you.
Good questions.
I think Assad just asked every question there possibly could be.
Exactly. I was going to say
That's
that.
okay. That's good. That's a great start. Anyone else?
Gabriel, David?
Yeah, well, you can add on their updates on the health study and updates on the air monitors too. But I think Assad's question completes all that, but I'll add it.
Okay. Becky or anyone else?
No, nobody else can speak. Sorry, we have 3 board members on here. It's a Brown Act violation. Please don't encourage that. Thank you, Craig.
I'm sorry, Assad, you must be muted. Or are you?
You could take all the stakeholder questions at this time. the board members who cannot speak, they can listen because of the Brown Act, but
Yeah.
we can, you know, I think I gave you enough questions to start with.
Yeah, you sure did. You sure
Yeah.
did. And I'm fine with that. Don't
And
want to.
you know, if there, I see already a hand raised by Mary Blair from the CAG.
Okay.
Let me see if,
Yeah, we'll do it. We'll do it your way, David. Don't mean to be disruptive.
okay,
Just wasn't
go
clear
ahead.
on that. No
Proceed.
problem. Okay. Did Mary have a question or can we move on?
I don't know where she went. Oh, there she is. She took her hand down.
Okay. So without further ado, let's go ahead and we got your questions, Andrew, you're capturing them. So we're going to talk about, we're going to begin with the end in mind. So here's tonight's agenda. And then we're going to begin with the end in mind and talk about our confidence vote. We're going to give you a very brief background and history of the CAG. We're going to talk about what the CAG's goals have been, actions we have taken, and the challenges that we've incurred. And we're going to provide you, we hope, with reasons why the CAG challenges the path that DPH is currently on. We'll talk about next steps. And most importantly, we'll talk about, we'll have time for Q&A. So begin with the end in mind. So what started off to be a way to do a metric and to track how we were progressing to meeting the community's needs, we opened every CAG meeting with the following question to the CAG members. Based upon what you know now, would you agree the health study is on a path that will support the community's needs and concerns? Again, this was used as a metric to help us proactively move forward so that we can get to a study that the CAG members would feel that we could come to you as communities, members and stakeholders, that we're confident in the path that this is on. So unfortunately, it worked in the absolute opposite way that we intended. We had hoped that things would get better because things weren't going well over the summer. So we introduced this in an October CAG meeting, and 7 of 9 people didn't feel it was on the right path. And then that escalated to 9 of 11 in the February meeting that felt the path was not going to address the community's needs and concerns. One thing I want to do is I would like for the PRNC to be able to answer this same question by the time we finish with this presentation and we answer every question that you have. So please jot down your thoughts and your questions so that we can address them, I guess, stakeholders too. Quick background. So we did this not too long ago, but the blowout was 118 days of unabated contamination into our community. I mean, you could probably see your home in that photo. It was the largest methane and chemical exposure in US history. For perspective, 200 times greater in volume than Deepwater Horizon. Over 8,000 homes relocated for 6 months, 1.5 million residents impacted. In February of 2019, in an agreement, you maybe call it a plea agreement or plea deal, SoCal Gas funded $119 million for a variety of things, 25 million of which were to go to funding a health study. And the consent decree, the LA County Department of Public Health, or DPH, is what we refer to them throughout the presentation, were to administer this study. There are 2 functional groups that we will talk about a lot tonight, and that's the Scientific Oversight Committee, which is a group of PhDs and MDs to set the course of the study. And then there's the Community Advisory Group, who you've graciously included us tonight, invited us tonight to talk. And literally that, we are supposed to be the advisory group to the community and also back to DPH. So that all makes sense, right? Okay. So really quick, and if I'm going into too many of the weeds, we can trim it. But we all live and work in the area. Our first full CAG meeting was 19 months ago, and that was August of 19. 13 members in total, 7 of which are from the 6 neighborhood councils that are most proximity to Aliso. PRNC has 2, that's why there's the 7 versus the 6. And all other members were chosen by DPH. We're a group of working and retired professionals. We have formed a cohesive group, and we've been able to work through our differences. we very early on met and collaborated and established kind of a guiding principles and charter, which we'll talk about more in a minute. Reputation. I want to spend a few minutes on this because this is critically important. We're very hardworking. We also believe that we're well informed, and we always think of things as what do we want for our families and what do we want for our community, and we have become unwavering advocates for this. We do expect answers, and we do have a tendency to hold our public agencies accountable. After all, they're supposed to work for the community. And sometimes we can have the perception of being difficult or even demanding. And that can manifest in some people thinking that we're a little too harsh or perhaps rude. While that's never our intent is to drive to a health study that is in proper proportion to what happened in our community. Again, the largest methane and chemical substance release in US history. So as you go through this, please try and keep that in mind, that we're going to talk about the situation that we've been literally immersed in for 19 months. So please try to appreciate that our frustration is very well founded, and why we voted the way we have voted is very well established for good reasons. And we hope we illuminate the majority of those. And with that, I want to turn it over to Dr. Nordella, who's going to take us through this mistrust that existed in the community. So doctor, if you're ready. We don't hear you, doctor.
Gabriel, can you check if Dr. Nordella is muted? Can you unmute him, please?
He shows as unmuted.
Yeah, he's unmuted. He looks fine.
Okay, we're going to do this the low-tech way.
Okay.
I'm going to get him on the speakerphone. If that doesn't work, then I'll do this. Dr. Nordella, if you go to that little microphone and click on it, or the little arrow next to the microphone.
Something is wrong.
Okay, I just threw you on speakerphone. If you could mute your computer now, please.
Now, can you hear me okay?
Yes, they hear you.
All right. I apologize about that. Okay, so basically we're just going to touch on some very, very major points, which I think is important that everyone hear. We all know about the Dr. Rankin letter, basically to basically not test for toxicology. I had met with Dr. Rankin and also Angela Baloma at the beginning. They asked me to suppress a news conference, which I did. They made promises that we would be working together, and I never heard from them again. The second point I would like to bring up is very important, is acrolein. And acrolein was a chemical that is definitely used in gas and oil. And going through the Layton study, of which the study was on the 114 homes in your community, that there were definitely markedly elevated levels of acrolein. Now, all other chemicals were measured by a norm, and the norm was set by Cal EPA. So again, California EPA, not the US EPA, but California EPA. These levels were markedly elevated in homes. And as well, 96% actually of tested homes had elevated acrolein levels, of which 5 of the 6 schools in your community were elevated. So as public health has used in the past for your yardstick, the California EPA, they aborted the level of looking at it through Cal EPA, and they explained it on the basis of one article. The article I've read numerous times, I've referenced it in the white paper, I've referenced it in town halls, had nothing to do Nothing to do. It was not a comparison of an explanation of why the acrolein would be elevated in your homes and schools. And actually, it deceptively blamed it on cooking oils, that everybody boils cooking oils like we're making McDonald's French fries in our homes. And therefore, that was the reason or the causation of the acrolein. So very, very misleading, very deceptive. And then I'd like to go to the next slide, if I could, and talk about the benzene again for a minute, because I think this is important to bring home. So DPH tested benzene and basically stated that it was negative. So in May 6th of 2016, they documented in a letter in a community, and I just want to read this. It says, as described in the summary report, the majority of priority chemicals of concern, including benzene, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, commonly known as black soot, and sulfur compounds, were not found to be elevated in the air or dust in Porter Ranch area's homes. Now, benzene, as we all know, is the most highly of the toxic, the one that's been linked more so with cancer. And so basically they said they tested for it and it was negative. Can I see the next slide, Craig? Craig?
You have it. It's there.
You're sharing your screen. I see you.
Yeah, we don't see the slides. We see you. Correct.
This happened once before. It blots out. How about now?
Okay, better. So I want to bring up a point that really nobody knows about right now. So this is new to all of you. I did a interview for a paper called, I can't even remember, it's the San Fernando Sun. The San Fernando Sun this was done in 2020, and he published the article. I made some statements, and it was the only article or even documentation of town halls that I received any pushback or could, find any pushback from the Department of Public Health. So the Department of Public Health pushed back to this reporter, and in that letter, in that email, it says, quote, the indoor environmental testing included benzene in accordance with U.S. EPA approved methods. The indoor air was tested for benzene, and indoor dust was not tested for benzene because there was not a U.S. EPA approved method available to perform testing for benzene in the household dust. So my point is that which one of these statements really are not truthful? So did you test, and if so, was it normal? Or did you not test, of which I found that they had not tested? And then this is in 2020 that a pushback from the Department of Public Health actually admitted they never tested for the benzene in the dust in your homes. Very powerful to me of why that hasn't been disclosed or ever talked about by anybody. This is benzene on the countertops of where you cook, where you eat, where your children eat. This is, to me, incredibly serious since we know that benzene is so toxic. Can we go to the next slide? So now, what about the toxic crude oil? This is so incredibly important. So the position of DPH initially was, bottom line, there was no mention of toxic crude oil until people from the community actually came forward and stated. So it says here, this is a letter from DPH to the Board of Supervisors, March 6, 2016. As early as December 17, 2015, some residents reported the appearance of an oily residue being deposited on their cars, patio furnitures, and other surfaces in their yards. Through the end of December, DPH received a total of 15 complaints from the relative to the oily residue. The residue was sampled and tested and determined to consist of relatively long chain hydrocarbons found in crude oil. It appears that the substance was forced out of the well, 25, in the form of liquid droplets along with the flow of natural gas. This is March 6, 2016. This is from DPH in black and white on their letterhead to all board supervisors. From 2016, next slide, please. We have a denial that they knew of any toxic crude oil from Angelo Bellomo. DPH to Southern California Gas, he writes a letter, 2019 of March. We're disheartened by the fact that Southern California Gas did not disclose, blame game, did not disclose this critical information regarding crude oil containing in its gas reservoir at the Aliso Canyon storage facility. Thus, the massive quantity of natural gas released from October 23rd, 2015 through February 12th, the entire time contained crude oil. Why Southern California Gas repeatedly stated during the disaster that the contents of the release were limited only to typical components of stored natural gas. I apologize, but that is a lie. You knew about it in March of 2016. You documented from the Department of Public Health to the Board of Supervisors that you were aware that these hydrocarbons were being released and people were breathing them. The other issue that is huge is no evaluation or assays were performed on this toxic crude oil. Toxic crude oil is just not one chemical that has X, Y, and Z in it. It's a possibility of having others. So we move forward. Next slide, please. We see what could be done for it. Now, how ironic is this? This is incredibly ironic. We have COVID-19. What's the argument over? Wearing a mask. A P100 mask could have been recommended to this community. A small little suggestion of awareness of saying, we know that there's toxic crude oil that you are inhaling and you are breathing for the entire time of the blowout. But yet, nothing was told to you. And 3 years later, the denial letter comes out that we didn't know anything. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Craig.
Thanks, Doctor. So the community's widely held mistrust really becomes the biggest impediment to the health study, trust. So, and the feedback that we had gotten as CAG members was that if trust wasn't established, there was probably going to be non-participation in the health study. So, and it was, as Dr. Nordella outlined, I mean, a lot of people failed us, right? And a lot of regulators just didn't come through. And the community really felt betrayed by the public agencies that are supposed to protect them. I mean, I think that in a nutshell is the simplest way to describe this. So, but what we want to illuminate to you all in this meeting is this is the situation that the CAG inherited. To help address this, and I told you the CAG met and started to get their act together early on, we came up with 3 pillars as part of our charter of how we kind of wanted to operate. And you know, we saw our role as advocates for the community. The community is well informed, and we felt that 3 pillars were critical for evaluating the progress and the steps taken in the health study. We've talked to you about these before, but they resonate, and we go back to this a lot. Is the action or the issue community-centric? Is it science-based? Has it been successful in pushing out a political agenda or influence? Because we knew if you didn't accomplish these things, these pillars, the community's trust wouldn't be established and they wouldn't participate or want to get involved. And if the study moved forward, the community wouldn't even have confidence in its findings. So again, what were our goals? What did we try to communicate? We had a chance to sit down with the SOC, and we spent a lot of time trying to articulate what would the community want in the health study? And we articulated the following. Let's see if we align, see if this answers the same questions that you would have. Very simply, what are the near and long-term human and pet health impacts and risks to the community surrounding the Aliso Canyon? We went on further. What are the synergistic toxicity health impacts of this unprecedented exposure? Because this is what was so unique about it. Never before has it been this combination, duration, and quantities of both known and unknown chemicals and substances, including particulate matter and crude oil. This has never happened before. So then there was this timing aspect, and this is really important because a lot of science folks didn't really grasp this right away. They thought we were only interested in the acute blowout, but the field has been around for decades, and it has been fugitive emissions before the blowout, and then you have the acute blowout, and then you go back to normal status where you have you have chronic, acute, and chronic exposures. And we felt it critical that the study do this. We kind of hit the reset button here, guys. We kind of like, okay, here's the past. We know there's issues with trust. We hit the reset button and we set out, these are our goals. If we can get to our pillars and our goals and align with DPH, things could look pretty good. And I will be honest with you, we were encouraged in the beginning because if you look at their mission statement and sort of how they were behaving, this is really important. Let's delve into this because it's the Environmental Health Division within DPH that is in charge of the health study. And they, quoting, strive to promote health and quality of life by identifying, preventing, and controlling harmful environmental factors in Los Angeles County. Sounds pretty good, right? Second paragraph. The mission is to assess environmental conditions and reduce exposure to health risks and to educate the public on sources of environmental risk so that they are empowered. Love that. So you're empowered to protect yourselves, your families, and your communities. We hit the reset button. We're not far off. If you compare what we want to accomplish and what they say their missions are, we shouldn't be far off. Okay? The plot thickens. So what has the CAG done as far as actions? That was one of your questions aside. So we talked about the pillars. We also secured that the SOC be made up of a majority of independent members. The consent decree said that there would be 7 regulators and 1 academic. That's what it said. We said, because we know the community has trust issues with the regulators, we must offset these 7 regulators with 8 independent members. We were able to do that. In fact, the CAG found 6 of the 8. Now, today, as we sit right now, the SOC is no longer majority independents. It is majority regulators. We'll get into that later. We presented to the SOC. We gave them what we thought the community would want the scope of the study to be, and we gave them insights into why. We had a good meeting. We requested the DPH and the county immediately subpoena SoCalGas for the full chemical list. You guys even supported us on that. The Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council did. Other actions that we've done along the way as we discovered things, we demanded testing and investigation of these 150 evidence bins that are still on site today. Not all of them, some have been removed. But also very importantly, these 31 missing ones. We'll get into that in a little more detail later. As we were CAG members, we discovered from these evidence bins that actually Dr. Nordella brought it to our attention. He brought it to the SOC's attention, and he brought it to DPH's attention. They didn't bring it to everybody's attention. Dr. Nordella did because he was a SOC member and he saw the reports. He said, hey, there's polonium-210 up there in these evidence bins. Polonium is nasty stuff, and we'll get into it in the Q&A if you guys want to. Just know it's nasty stuff. So if it's up in the hill and it's windblown into our community, we need an investigation of radiation in our community. At the end of the day, right, we have to pass this on to the researchers. So what should the researchers be looking for? Don't you think radiation is an important thing to know for the SOC to be able to say, when you do the full study, make sure you consider radiation? But this question is not being answered. Okay, those were our actions. What are our challenges now? And our top challenges as far as from the CAG's perspective. There is not a small gap. There is a chasm of foundational information that is still not available for a true, comprehensive, science-based, patient-centric health study that we advocate. This is exactly what the community wants. But you can't really get there with huge gaps in data sets, as any science person would tell you. Those include the chemical list, which we've talked about repeatedly. What we want to emphasize on this slide is that we've never gotten an explanation of why the county won't use the subpoena power. And DPH right now today has full authority to exercise the subpoena. The scientific evidence bins, only 6%. We're a little fuzzy on exactly what small portion has been. It might be 6 or 9% of the bins have been sampled. And if there's 150 of them up there, what else is up there? Because that's evidence for what we were exposed to. 31 bins, they're missing, they're gone. What was in them? They were pulled out early. So we have to assume those are the worst of the worst. Doesn't it make sense that the investigators have information on what's in them? Because that's what we were exposed to. Radiation, we already talked about. CBC study, Dr. Nordell is going to talk about that a little bit more. Again, a huge gap is the idea of the IDing of the ongoing fugitive emissions that are coming out of that field today. It's still leaking. Remember the Saddle Ridge fire and that ground fire that was burning for several days? And it didn't go out by itself. County Fire put out the flame. And then the gas company just filled the little hole with dirt while the methane is still coming up right out of the soil. This field is leaking. It's in our neighborhoods. It's in our homes. It's in our lungs. Okay, I'm spending more time on this than I wanted to. Cancer registry study, big gap there. We could find out today, if we have disproportionate levels of cancers in our communities relative to other communities far away from gas and meth. We could do that today, and we've asked for it. It's not being made available. A couple other things happened most recently. DPH made unilateral decisions to minimize the CAG's and communities' voices. They've also removed 2 very critical SOC members, and you wouldn't know how critical they are unless you were as close to it as we were. And they were the strongest community advocates for, and they were removed.
Greg, if I can jump in real quick, can you go back just real quick?
Sure.
Just so everyone knows on the radiation, there are two very key points to the radiation. There is how radioactive is the material if you were to walk by it. That's one, and that's quite frankly what DPH is going to lean on. The other, and this is what we, the CAG, have pointed out multiple times, and we're not getting any traction, is there's a huge difference between this particle being on the ground and you walking by it, and that particle being inhaled. Okay, and polonium-210, when it is inhaled, is some of the worst stuff on the planet. And that's why the CAG is so hell-bent to get radiation work done, because that material is blowing off the field and blowing right into our communities and being inhaled. So thank you, Craig.
Oh yeah, thank you, Andrew. Okay,
Let
so
me
that's
ask
the
a question real
context.
quick. Sorry,
Oh, yeah,
Craig.
sure.
How long does polonium-210 stay in your system? Is that a question for Nordella, or Andrew might know? I'm not sure.
I don't. Andrew or Dr. Nordell, are you still on the phone?
I
Yes.
do not know the answer. Jeff, Dr. Nordell, can you do that?
Did you hear the question, sir?
Yes, I did, and I don't know off the top of my head the half-life of polonium, but 2 points I wanted to let you also know is radon also when inhaled, there's a difference between gamma, beta, alpha radiation. The point being is that, which is very important, and I asked this in a SOC meeting from public health, was there any evaluation during the blowout or post the blowout, any radiation evaluation done on this exposure? And the answer was no. None was done. They didn't even use a Geiger counter. And I had suggested that we do this on the bins. Supposedly, they have a section within the Department of Public Health that deals with radiation exposure. They supposedly called them out, never saw a report, don't know where it's going, and obviously I'm off the SOC.
I see David has his
I think
hand up.
David has a question.
so sorry. Is that to me?
No, David Balin's just unmuted himself. Just please stand by.
So just to add to what Dr. Nadello was mentioning about the Geiger counters, I can tell you that there were people in our community with Geiger counters. So I can tell you all throughout the Renaissance. I don't know if Gabriel saw them when they were on the, excuse me?
There might have been people in your community with Geiger counters,
Mhm.
but according to Katie Butler from the Department of Public Health, there was no radiation evaluation done at any time on this blowout.
So the Geiger counters, then I get it. The Geiger counters that they might have been using could have been Geiger counters smelling methane or whatever. But I can just tell you, there were people, a half a dozen of them, walking throughout the streets, checking cracks with Geiger counters. Just FYI.
David, do you happen to know who they were?
Yeah.
It's been 5 years, but I believe they were SoCal Gas representatives, if I'm not mistaken.
So, I mean, let's assume it was SoCal Gas. I mean, that's information that should be subpoenaed, don't you think?
If we were subpoenaing that, then that's something maybe that they should. I mentioned to our attorneys that they were on the premises with Geiger counters, so
That's good.
I'm sure they shared it with
Thank you.
everybody
So
else.
that's information that should have been turned over to Department of Public Health so they could do a health evaluation.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that, David. That's
was
really valuable.
This is probably after probably maybe 4 or 5 weeks into it. They were out, but just for knowledge, they were only there for one day. I did not see them ever since.
Well, but okay, you just illuminated yet another gap of information that would be critical, that the SOC understands it, so that when they write their goals and priorities, it's inclusive, as well as it's passed on to the folks that are going to be doing the research, the heavy lifting. So, if you have garbage in, you're going to get garbage out. So the more data, the better. Okay. Can I move on? Is that okay?
Yeah, I just want to
Yes,
say thank
go
you.
ahead.
I just want to say thank you to David. That's a really
Yeah.
good piece of information. So thank you for sharing.
We should bring that up in our CAG meeting, whenever the next one is. No, but seriously, I don't mean to make light of it. That's important to challenge that be investigated. So you figure that was around 4 or 5 weeks into the blowout. So you're looking at November, mid to late November. Roughly.
I honestly,
Okay.
I can't remember the exact particular time. I do just remember that they were, when you hear the Geiger counters, then you hear, woo, woo, you're kind of like, all right, what's going on outside? I should have probably noted the date and maybe the time or
That's
whatever,
all right.
but they were throughout the entire community. But it should be known. I mean, Gabriel's pretty much on top of everything during the day in the community as well. So, and it was probably around 4 or 5 at night. So they were just out. So.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right. That's enough for it to be trigger a deeper investigation. Okay, so these are the factual things that are missing, that chasm. But let's now put a time perspective to these knowledge gaps, right? And this is what sort of gets the frustration, elevates the frustration significantly amongst a bunch of volunteers that are just trying to do the right thing. And you look at all these elements, and every one of these, by the way, every one of these is a request, except for air monitoring, is a request that the CAG made. DPH didn't come to us and say, hey, do you want us to subpoena the chemical list? Do you want us to provide financial reporting? No, we had to ask for every one of these things, where that's kind of odd. That's also frustrating. It's not like, why aren't they leaning into it and be more proactive? So you think about the chemical list. We've been together 19 months. It was one of the first things we put on the table. 18 months later, no resolution. The cancer registry. We've been debating this topic for 11 months. The community survey. This one should resonate with the PRNC deeply. because Hassan challenged, and Assad, you were at that meeting too,
Yes,
When they-
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
right? Okay, so you remember this, but for the others that weren't there, there was a survey done by telephone, 400 respondents. Only 35 were in Porter Ranch of the 400. It was messed up. It was wrong. Okay, so we had to go back. The CAG went back and argued vehemently with the support of PRNC. So we thank you for that this is misrepresentative of the communities most impacted. Not that other neighborhood council stakeholders weren't impacted, but the disproportional or underrepresentation of Porter Ranch, arguably ground zero, was woefully underrepresented in the survey. So we
So
had
this
to
will
commit-
be action item 1 for tonight, that we should do a community survey jointly with you and get it out.
Well, Assad, it's already been done of the community. And Lori and Hassan really worked their tails off to get the word out. And we have somewhere around 300 or 350 additional online surveys that mostly came from Porter Ranch residents. It has been 4 months and we haven't seen the results of that. Here's the problem, and I'm going to just illuminate this for a second, because here's something that the PRNC worked hard on. The results of it are being withheld by DPH. It's a survey, guys. Just give us the data. Just give us the results. The problem is, and this is an easy way to articulate, DPH perceives this as their survey, not the community survey. Because if they perceived it as the community survey, they would say, here's what we found. Here's what the answers were. You wouldn't wait 4 months. What are you doing with it for 4 months? It gives them way too much time to either not share it with us, massage it, okay? It makes everybody uncomfortable. There's no transparency. And I'll get back on track here, I apologize. You amplify that same less level of low transparency with all these critical path items. Not good. Other unilateral decisions that DPH recently made, they didn't ask us our opinion. They just did these things. Didn't even do a survey, which is their new hot button. Look, no disrespect to these two people, these two individuals. They're very nice people, but they are junior and they're in very critical path roles for the health study. One oversees the management of the SOC and facilitates, how many, 14 or so PhDs and better. Okay. The other one is in charge of all community outreach. Now, they are not of the experience. No disrespect to them. Again, they're nice people, but they are not of the experience caliber that we think you on the neighborhood council and the community would expect to be in place. It's not their fault.
And just to be clear, the junior tag is not ours. That is what Dr. Davis of DPH referred to them as at the last CAG meeting.
Very good point, Andrew. Thank you. This isn't the staffers' fault, right? This is the management that brought in and chose inexperienced people to lead these critical functions and roles. All right. So what else did they do unilaterally? They reduced the CAG meeting 67%. We shifted from monthly to quarterly. This marginalizes the community's voice. And this also further reduces what little transparency there was. This one is very concerning. DPH eliminated the subcommittees that were on critical path tasks, right? Just like you guys in the Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council, traffic and safety, beautification, whatever. Because everybody can't be involved in everything, so you break it into manageable pieces and you send people. We did the same thing. Cancer registry study, CBC study, outreach, community opinion and survey, a video message. DPH says we're eliminating these and we're bringing these functions back in-house. They're already on average 13 months behind on critical deliveries, and then they choose to bring the workload back inside. That's not logical. That's not good management. It doesn't even make sense.
Well, again, to point out when you look at that, can you go back, Craig? When you look at that, now note that every one of those that are asked have an asterisk next to them were born out of the CAG. So what they did is took CAG initiatives away and put them in-house. The question is, do you think they're actually going to get worked on or completed? And the only logical answer is no.
Okay. So again, you know, giving you the facts, but this is sort of where the frustrations really emanate. But you know, these are the actualities that are going on. So another unilateral decision that was
So
just
Craig,
announced.
Craig, let me jump in, Craig, if I may. We have a hand up.
Yeah.
Julie has had her hand up for 5 or 6 minutes now. I don't know if you want to take that question.
Yeah, I noticed. And plus we have 4 questions online.
Yeah.
So I was gonna get it to it after Craig.
May I ask,
Unless you wanna,
Julie, would you like us to answer your question now, or would you like to wait until after the presentation?
I'll bring her in. Go ahead, Julie, please.
I can wait, you know, I just wanted to make sure that I was called on, but I can wait.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Assad. Okay, so jumping back to the unilateral decisions that were made. Look, I want to spend a little time on this because this is important that we get this right. So they have, DPH is really fragmenting the community's communication and voices. And this is concerning, right? Because DPH at the February 3rd meeting, Dr. Davis legitimized reducing the CAG's input due to new communications via key NCs. This is what he said. He said, you know, we fostered new relationships, new contacts, and we believe it's specifically with Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council. The reason why we believe that is we know that there's been a meeting, and that's okay, you know, but we also have checked with the other NCs, and they have no direct communication with Department of Public Health. So the reason we bring this up is because DPH is propping up a one-time meeting, I understand. Maybe there was more, you guys can shed light on that. As we now have more contact with the community and we need less of the CAG. Let's think about the unintentional consequences of that. That marginalizes the effectiveness of the CAG to advocate for all NCs, because that's our job, right? There's 6 NCs. They were representatives were elected to be on the CAG, and if there are issues where an NC has concerns or questions or is unhappy that their voice isn't being presented properly, this is a very open group. And not only the NCs, but the residents. You know, Julie has attended many of our meetings and she speaks up, and we like to hear from everyone. And the door is open. If there is a felt of a need to do an end around us, please give us the professional courtesy to meet with us and see if we can't resolve the issue amongst us and still represent all of the NCs in the North Valley. Okay, hopefully I did that fairly and objectively. The other big policy decision that DPH made recently, and everybody should be very concerned about this, the most trusted community SOC member was removed, Dr. Nordella. And why is that important? I mean, not just because we kind of, you know, he's a good guy to talk to for information, but he's the only practicing clinician on the SOC that has firsthand knowledge of what really happened to the community right here at Ground Zero. Remember, he was right at Rinaldi and Porter Ranch Drive during the whole thing, and he saw people in and out of his urgent care. And you think about the committee that he's on, it's about science and health. Wouldn't you want that frontline guy offering you input and answering your questions? And then finally, I just want to make sure everyone realizes that the CAG unanimously voted that Nordella be on the SOC. And this was despite DPH's objections to it.
Craig, may I add a point?
Of course.
So it's my understanding, which was just brought to my attention, this afternoon that there was a presentation given, and I don't know where or how, from Charlene from the Department of Public Health that basically inferred or basically just stated, I don't know the quote, I'd like to, I don't know if you guys have it, that basically myself and Dr. Sistron chose not to be on the SOC anymore. And again, we just come down to a lie. That's not true at all. I attempted to mitigate by extending my hand, wrote a very long email asking him not to go down this path. I explained every reason why. I then took their invitation to speak with their attorneys. And it was just actually one attorney, as well as Christine. And we went through and I tried to explain to this attorney that this document that they were mandating, which they stated as a standard, which absolutely Dr. Sistron said this is not standard in research. And I explained to them why I couldn't, as a licensed treating doctor in the state of California. Absolutely fell on deaf ears. They had the option of going back and amending this paperwork to where we could have come to common ground, but chose not to. And then to have this presented as of last night, again, is not truthful. And it's just something I want the community to know about. Thank you.
I witnessed that. Charlene said the 2 members chose to leave the SOC, and that's not true. The other member that you should all know about, his name is Christopher Sistron, and he was at the February 3rd meeting, the CAG meeting, after all these unilateral decisions were being announced. And he was a spectator, right? So he had to wait for the comment time, and he had to go. He had to go to another meeting. So he put this in the text. Says, there's too much to talk about here, not enough time. The bottom line is that this is a tragedy on a tragedy, after we heard about all these changes that DPH made. Why is there no real concern for the lack of confidence in this process? And why is there a sense of doubling down on staying the course that is clearly not transparent? This is shameful, it's shameful. This guy articulated it in 3 lines better than, I think in my presentation. So, and we've met with him a couple of times. He's great. He's strongly advocating for the community. He was removed by DPH from the SOC.
So
Now
Craig,
the SOC does not have a majority of independent members. So we have to ask, is what you just heard, is this still community centricity? Because the community's voices have been significantly and unilaterally censored. And it further eliminates the transparency. And this was done by your Department of Public Health. They're here for you. So ask yourselves, is this the right path for the study?
so Craig, part of what we're talking about right now is communication between the department and the public. Lori has her hand raised. Lori
I was gonna get to the questions in a minute.
So it's not a question. Can you bring her in, please? Lori was a big part of our CAG town hall subcommittee. And Lori, along with others, spearheaded we're attempting to spearhead, I believe it was Patty and Mary, the outreach for our town hall. And speaking in the realm of communication or lack thereof, or problems thereof, I'd like Lori to be able to discuss that for just a moment, if that's okay.
Go ahead, Lori. I brought her in.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. You can hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I did. I just wanted to delve a little further into the communication aspect, our concerns about the Department of Public Health being able to effectively communicate without us, because we formed a subcommittee back in January of last year to host a huge town hall. We were all working very hard on it, and through no fault of anyone's, especially DPH, the pandemic got in the way. Before all this happened, we tried, it was Patty, Melissa Messer, Brian, and myself were on this committee, and Mary Blair. We tried to get a flyer from the Department of Public Health. And mind you, they have a consulting firm that is hired to do these things for them. We begged for 3 months. Finally, Melissa, who's a graphic designer, made a flyer. It could not get through the bureaucracy of public health to be okay. And this was up until we were just a few weeks out, and we had our own time schedule that we listed for them how much notice the neighborhood councils, the elected officials, how many weeks out we needed for all that. It was all ignored. So it got thrown out the window. The town hall was canceled. We got a new date for it. I believe it was in July. And we started working on it again in April or May. The same thing happened all over again with the flyer. We gave them lists of publications, begged them to get on Nextdoor as a public agency where they could advertise for free far and wide. They didn't do it. Their representative only made it to, I believe, 1 or 2 of the neighborhood council meetings, one being Porter Ranch and the other being one of the Granada Hills. The other ones, they just blew off. Didn't promote the town hall at the meetings like they said they would. No Nextdoor account. I don't know what happened with the elected officials because I asked them to take that on as an agency. I thought they might get more elected officials to attend, but the rest of us spread it on our own. Mind you, we're not paid for this. We spread it on our own for weeks all over Facebook. So this is why we were so disheartened when we don't know what was discussed with the Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council, but we got a very strong feeling that the neighborhood council was told that we were lacking in our communication, which is a complete untruth. We have tried for 1.5 years to far and wide spread any word of anything that's been going on with the health study. So that's just a little of background of what, feeling like we're banging our heads on the wall, of what we've been going through for the last 1.5 years. And that's just one committee. I was on 3 or 4 committees and similar things happening in all of those as well. So thank you for hearing that out.
Thank you, Lori.
Shall I continue?
Yes,
Your
please.
call,
Go ahead.
sir. However you want to do it. Okay. All right, so we talked about the communication and the silencing of the community's voice. Now let's talk about the science part and the chemical list. The #1 trust issue probably in the community. Get us the chemical list. We need to know. Why not? Makes perfect sense scientifically, makes perfect sense for us to be able to visit with our doctor and let them know what we were exposed to. 7 NCs unanimously agreed that this is a top priority. So I want to stress the unique legal latitude that the county and DPH have with the subpoena power. Because of public health concerns, the law is with the agencies because they have the ability to pierce the trade secret protections that our plaintiff counsel cannot. Okay? So the law is in full support of the county from doing this. So what must be missing is political will to do so. And political is the key word here.
And Craig, a quick question.
Yes.
So just for the record here, what's the speculation we have that there is beyond methane? What other possibilities? Can you share with us? Benzene?
What other contaminants?
Well,
okay.
That you think that it's already there.
Okay, sure. Probably the biggest one, and Dr. Nadella may have more. The biggest one is the composition of what was in the blowout, right? And it's not just gases. It's particular matter. It's the liquids, the crude oil, and having a full breakdown of the composition of what was just fumigating our neighborhoods and wind spread into our households and backyards and kids' toys in our pool. That composition is critically needed to do the proper assessment of what we were exposed to. Okay.
Let me add to heavy metals, which was in the kill fluids that were shot up in the air. And the last point scientifically I'd like to make is, heavy metals like lead, which was the Flint issue. Here you have uranium, and uranium not only acts as a radioactive ion, destroys tissue and taken internally, it also destroys your organ system, mainly the kidneys, when you take it in orally as just a toxin, as a heavy metal toxin. So I would just like to add that to it.
The other thing that we recently became aware of is that SoCalGas sampled what was coming straight out of SS25 and has not provided that information to anyone else. And come on, self-preservation of an entity like that, they're not going to disclose the bad stuff. So that's why you need to subpoena the information, because they're not going to give it up freely. I mean, self-preservation alone, the lawyers and the corporate environment are going to say, we're not talking about that. We're not going to give that up. Okay.
Craig Andrews said his computer crashed. He'll be back soon.
Thank you, Gabe. So for those that want to know, I'm just going to do this really quickly. There is a statute on the California laws. It's Health and Safety Code 25500 that provides public health, even if for accidental releases. The law provides health officials to get this information in order to prevent and mitigate damages in health and safety of persons. The law is with us on this, guys. Assad, did you want to address David's hand?
Go ahead, David.
Thank you. So Craig, maybe you can educate me and the rest of the people. So the law is with us, but the Board of Supervisors are not. So, I mean, we really need the Board of Supervisors to jump on the bandwagon more than anybody else. What do we need to do?
Well, great segue, sir. And Andrew was going to do this slide. I don't think Andrew's back yet, is he? Let me address that immediately, David. So what did we do? We had the same question that you did, David. We met with Supervisor Barber. It took us 4 months to meet with her, maybe longer, doesn't matter. We met with her. And she opened the meeting with, the study is worthless without this chemical list. She offered that. She also said this is of the thoughts and the minds of Barbara Ferrer, the Director of Public Health. So again, David, to your point, they have the authority, and she offered and promised that she would get the list, but nothing has happened in the 5 months.
But you know as well as I do, if they really wanted to get the list, they could initiate a subpoena, but they don't want to. So what do we do?
Well, you guys write another letter.
At the end of the day, I mean, if they're not going to initiate the subpoena and our lawyers are not going to initiate the subpoena for it, it makes us look like we have mud on our face. I mean, it's, if they are elected officials are not going to do what they're supposed to do and look you straight in the face and waste your time for 4 months trying to get in the door, they have a meeting and they say, oh, our attorneys aren't going to allow us to do that. What do? Do we do a recall on them? You want to initiate a recall? I mean, if you want to get your chemical list, maybe we should initiate a recall. We want our chemical list, or we're going to initiate a recall on you.
Others have said the same thing, David.
Okay. And I'm just.
Yeah, I think that's a great item for a next step. That's a great item for a next step.
Because at the end of the day, where we're going after the DPH, the DPH answers to so many people, and we're the small entity of all of LA County, or all of their territory. I think it's a bigger picture. I think they're just a small fish in the sea doing exactly what they're told to do. That's unfortunate. But I think, we need to hold our mayor, our council members, our supervisors, all the elected officials that are not stepping up. So I think we're going after the wrong people, if you really want to go after people, then I would only say the best thing is if they're not going to do it, we initiate a recall.
Okay, we got two targets then, because we've met with Barger on this topic and we've met with John Lee on this topic. And they're not moving forward with it.
Well, you know where our council member and his office was the very first 3 weeks of the gas blowout.
I honestly don't. What do you mean physically?
Well,
sorry, what
I
do you
don't
mean
think
by-
anybody. I don't think anybody saw them. So,
Okay.
and that's why I had to throw the meeting at Shepherd of the Hills Church because they weren't around.
Yeah, and look at how well that was attended, the outrage that people had.
We had 2,600 plus people there.
That place was filled.
And
the question- Go
the
ahead.
council member came to me that night with Paula, asking me if he was okay if he spoke to his community, which was fine. I'm not here for glory by any means. I'm here to get the results, but I want to get results from the right people. And if you're going after the wrong people, it's a waste of time. It's such a waste of time to spin your wheels and not get it. And you know what? If Barger is laughing at us because the supervisors, not just Barger, but the board of supervisors is laughing at us, then we need to maybe initiate a recall. Because if we initiate a recall, maybe they'll take us seriously. Do your job, or we're going to recall you.
I love it. The only thing that I would add to that quotient is that DPH does not need county approval. They have the authority on their own to do so. So they're not off the hook completely, but they do have to answer to the board of supervisors. And we've been told they'll do it, but they patted us on the head and sent us on our way. I love the recall idea. Pressure needs to be put, and we need a massive community uproar and just say we're not going to stand for this. This is our health.
And that's
I
the
like
only
it.
way. That's the only way they're gonna listen to you. I mean, the Alicia Canyon is a big issue in the March 2020 elections, and there was a lot of discussions, commitments. But once they are elected, both of them, we don't see anything. Not even attendance tonight.
Yeah, Assad, who was invited again? Wasn't public health invited too?
Public health.
Who was invited tonight?
No, I invited the supervisor, CD12, assembly. The assemblywoman, she was trying very hard to join us because she would love to meet with you. But scheduling and a lot of issues going on with the COVID-19, trying to get the vaccinations and all that logistics. Both her and the congressman couldn't make it. But I wouldn't be surprised if they will join us any minute, because they know of the urgency. I shared with them like up to half an hour before the meeting, the exact Zoom logistics and all that. David, who else was invited? David?
I left it up to you. It's your meeting. and you guys, you have to, I'll be the first person to tell you that, unfortunately, our council member at this time knows very little about the gas leak. I won't put that on him by any means. He has very little knowledge about that. Unfortunately, I wish he was more involved. I wish, even ex-council member Englander was more involved, but unfortunately, they're not. I think we really need to start to stay focused on, because it's in Barger's neck of the neighborhood. It's LA County. They'll be the first person to tell you. So if anybody, we need to push Barger.
Plus, LADWP is the biggest client in the city of LA for the Southern California. So the city should put some pressure somehow.
Sure. Well, we got to pick our shots. I understand we have limited resources, but we should pressure as many as the ones that make sense. And David, just so you're aware, CAG members met with John Lee and walked him through the issues about the blowout and the health study. And
I have no comment. You do what you need to do.
So I'd like,
Go ahead,
can you hear
Doctor.
me okay,
Yes,
Greg?
yes.
I'd like to input a couple of things from the SOC point of view, is that we discussed the chemicals of concern and getting the chemical list, and it was told to us by the Chief Scientific Officer, Dr. Simon, that we were never going to get the list. So we needed to move on and try to do a study around that. That's $25 million. So then the question is that study going to help you or hurt you? So that's another topic. But I agree with you 100%. This all goes to barter. Aren't these just puppets and we're looking for the master puppeteer? And I think it hangs around the supervisor Barker's neck. And for this committee to meet with this woman and have her make that statement, and she was, and correct me if I'm wrong, and please input Greg or whoever else was at that meeting. She was very proud of the fact that she got the $25 million to get the study done. And if this was going to be an absolute waste, but yet I'm hearing on the SOC that this is not going to happen. So if they're aware, how are they aware, but yet she is selling false hope that she's going to go back and talk to her attorneys? And her attorneys they are at her will. It's not the other way around. I think that needs to be understood. She's the politician. She looks to counsel, hence the word counsel, how to move forward. And if she has an agenda, is this her agenda? Is to now let these poor people go after she promised to get? And what feedback has been given, Craig?
If they would get it.
No. What feedback? She told you she would get it. And what have you heard from
Oh,
them?
absolutely nothing. And we've sent 2 reminders.
There you go.
Craig,
Okay, you guys
there is a
convinced me. We
few
gotta go.
comments from Patty and then Q&A. So I'm gonna allow her to talk to see if she wants to bring it up rather than reading it. Go ahead, Patty.
Oh, okay, thank you. She was asked on separate occasions last year for this chemical list. First at the Board of Supervisors meeting, several of us, when she was going to do when she was introducing her resolution to support Gavin Newsom and expediting the closure, we all brought up, several of us, something like 16 of us, brought up the need for this chemical list. And she called aside someone supposedly from her county counsel's office and asked him, can we do this? The Lethal Moms Alliance met with her the next month in person. And we each talked about the growing number of cancer cases in each of our neighborhoods. And we said, we need this chemical list for a proper health study. And like you said, or someone said just now, she tends to pat herself on the shoulder. And she was talking about 20 minutes about how great it was that she got us this health study. So she was boasting about it. But again, she needs to help us get the information. And then, of course, the CAG meeting where she outright said to us, and there were several of us there in that meeting. So again, 3 times.
Thank you, Patty.
Shall I continue, Assad?
Yeah, unless you want to take Julie. How many slides do you have left, Craig?
We've got about 8 or 9 more.
Okay. And then we'll
Okay, so I'll
take
try and
all the
power through.
questions. Okay.
Is Julie waiting? I think Julie's waiting, or did she re-raise her hand?
She kept it up.
Okay, I think she's waiting for the Q&A section. Okay, so just really quickly, I just want everyone to realize that the CAG did not sit on their hands when we were stonewalled on the. We also did a round robin of the neighborhood councils, unanimous. I've never seen so many neighborhood councils unite over one single topic, and it was unanimous. 7 of them saying absolutely subpoena, subpoena, subpoena. We also generated a petition with 2,500 signatures that went directly to Supervisor Barger. Okay, so we were very persistent, and DPH repeatedly declined to use the subpoena authority and only offered us the explanation of attorney-client privilege, would not tell us why. So we can speculate why, we can have a discussion later if you like. But The other thing that's very frustrating is DPH, who has full legal authority right now today, is deferring to the county supervisor's office. So David's point is well taken about challenging the supervisor, because obtaining the chemical list is now no longer science driven. It's politically driven. And we're trying really hard to get the politics out of this. So somebody doesn't want us to know the truth.
I think you need to stop right there, because the politics have always been there since day one. Since day one, it's gone from Brown to Garcetti to all of our politicians. It's always been political. So keep that in mind, because if you're not thinking as political, you're missing everything.
I have to agree. When you look at the mission statement again, right? Chemical list, keep that in mind. And here is the punchline, that they are supposed to identify harmful elements and factors in the LA County. Why? To educate the public on sources of environmental risk, so they are empowered to protect themselves and their families and communities. What fits this definition better than the chemical list? Nothing, in my opinion. So yeah, we have to put a lot of pressure, political pressure, or else we are not going to get a study that we want. So I'm going to ask the doctor, because we have a scientist here to tell us more about the science issues. So doctor, you want to take these next couple of slides?
Sure. So we looked at, because of the benzene exposure, and somebody brought up in the Q&A already that crude oil has benzene in it. Absolutely correct. And that crude oil, that benzene within that crude oil that you were exposed to, is not measurable by all of these meters they run around with. So just so you understand, so the benzene level that they actually got has to be questioned in its accuracy because you are being exposed to it. So basically the CBC, since we know that the benzene affects the CBC, I just decided to say, heck, we have a lot of CBCs for patients. So we went and got 11,000 of them over 11 years and took it to a statistician and said, hey, can you look at particular parameters? They looked at the parameters, came back and said these were concerning numbers. And I won't go into it any deeper than that. But I sat down with this and I said, gosh, I need more data. So I tried to go to Quest, worked with them for 6 months, and finally had mentioned that they had asked me and questioned me, was I working with DPH? And I told them no, and they asked me why, and they aborted our conversations. They discontinued them. So I did not have a larger group to look at. And then I presented it to Berkeley, and Berkeley said, this is a concern, and it looks like this is chronic benzene exposure. Presented it to you in a town hall. And when Dr. Simon then came on scene, we sat in December of 2019. He asked me, had a nice breakfast, a conversation. I turned over all of the data and information to him, turned over the person that did the statistical analysis, told him why we were concerned, and he said, yes, I absolutely am concerned as well. So we started talking and strategizing how we could get it from Quest. He again didn't want to use subpoena power after they rejected him twice. He tried to create a relationship. It's been 16 months now. 16 months, of which it took us approximately 4 weeks to acquire the data, have it analyzed, and have a conclusion on the first pass. Why 16 months? I understand COVID is a difficulty and it's taken a lot of time and so forth. But the issue is, again, are we going to move forward and look at this for the community as far as a health risk? You've already told me you're concerned. And now there's no Dr. Simon here. He's off, and I don't know where he's reassigned or why he was reassigned. Next slide, please.
Sorry, wasn't quite ready.
Fugitive admissions have been documented in a couple of things. One is that what is going on, well, let's go back. In 2016, the GIS HEAL study You did not get the GIS-HEAL study, even though it was completed. Public health held on to that for 2 years. 2 years, the GIS-HEAL study. And in the GIS-HEAL study, there was a lot of issues that brought up scientifically were quite a concern to me. One of them was that there were ongoing fugitive admissions, but, quote, further studies need to be done. Where are the further studies? None. Baltimore. Okay. Second, the Pacoima area is now suffering the same thing. And how did they discover fugitive admissions? From JPL. So JPL also documented, just so you know, in 2017, that there continually are fugitive admissions, such as your fire, your Woolsey fire, on and on and on. So there's ample evidence that there's fugitive admissions, which makes it, again, chronic prior, acute during the blue out, and chronic now. So you are being exposed is my fear. So the radiation investigation, we talked about the polonium, we talked about all of the wind blowing in the community, you inhale this. And by the way, I did look really quick. The half-life of polonium is 140 days. That's out of the body. I don't know if there's a clearance level in the body. I'll have to do a little deeper research. Cancer occurrence study, I sat on the subcommittee. Bottom line, the study that they could only do without further request was a study that contaminated the control group. The control group was contaminated throughout LA because you don't know who's being exposed to gas and oil. So if you do not have a pure control group, you cannot really get an accurate incidence of disease such as cancer. So just to bring that up. And Craig, I think it goes back to you with your community.
Right, thanks. We already covered this, but you know, the survey provides the opinions and needs of the community. The SOC needs that, so they make sure that they cover off what's important to us. They don't have it. So look, guys, it's been 5.5 years, right? The path of the study right now today, we've demonstrated it's not following the science. It's not following the community because they've severed communications, and it has politics in it. You know, and David's right. You know, we knew it. Politics were in there from the get-go, but we tried to take the purist and push it out as best we could. So you have to ask yourselves, and the CAG has asked them, and now we're asking the community, is this the study that you want? Now, I think you might have a perspective of why the CAG has these sort of metric results when asked about the confidence in the study, and it only progressively got worse. And now we have been mitigated. We've been pushed out. Okay. So what should it be, right? So the strongly held position of the CAG is that this must be a patient-centric study. And what that means is establish the gold standard of studies of such type. Make sure it's long-term. And it must examine the people, right? It must do clinical examinations of the people because we don't know all the chemicals. We don't know the mix of the composition of all the gases. There's too many unknowns. So you have to, and Dr. Nardella has been beating this drum since day one. You have to look at the people, and that's what he did with CBC. And that's what he did with his health probe. And he had always hoped that the big time folks would grab a hold of this and run with the same kind of approach of looking at the people. Because here's what's going to happen. DPH is going to do what these guys do to cover up what we've been exposed to and whitewash this with an environmental risk assessment. And all that does is say, let's look at how much was in the air. Let's speculate what Craig Galante and his family inhaled or was exposed to. Let's estimate it. And the only way they can do that is with chemicals that they know about. What about all the chemicals they don't know about? So a huge gap there, right? And not only when they do a risk assessment, let me make sure you understand what is so flawed about a risk assessment is it evaluates the environment, not the person. The CCST, the California Center for Science and Technology, an independent body, told everybody that would listen. They published a report. They came to Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council, made a presentation, and they said the measurements that were done during the blowout are unusable for an accurate health assessment. Was that intentional? The reason I ask is because everybody is looking at this, the measurements of the air monitoring. The majority of those were done by SoCalGas. Yet this appears to be the path and the historical playbook that DPH is following. Do a health risk assessment. So that you can say, we don't know exactly what was in the air, but what we do know, we don't think it's that harmful. Nothing to see here, move on. And spend $25 million in a whitewash. That's what we're trying to prevent. I'm gonna wrap it up right now, Assad. You guys have been more than patient. So some ideas of next steps. We think that the PRNC can help the community by clarifying to DPH the value and the position of the CAG and how we are here facilitating the wishes of the NCs in the community and represent them. Because you know, each neighborhood council has kind of the obligation to protect its stakeholders. So we want to share that with you. So I think clarity to what's going on here communications wise would be appropriate. And we're here for you. Anytime you guys want to talk about the path that we're on, how we're here. We want to hear from you. We also think it would be appropriate if the Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council challenged DPH with a no confidence vote on the current study's path. Try to influence this. But to David's point, it's gone far enough. It has to be pushed hard. If you're going to do a recall to Barger, which I think is a great idea, then send a strong statement and say, we don't have confidence that the path that your department and your monies that you got, Barger, we are not confident on the right path. We can insist on a patient-centric study. A nice letter from you guys would be great. Continue attending our meetings and town halls. We all have noticed that the PRNC is the most representative NC at these meetings. So you guys should pat yourselves on the back for staying involved. You are the most present and lucid and ask good questions. We also thank you for the outreach. And what I also want to say to you guys, all of you, is what can the CAG do for PRNC?
Thank you, Craig. This is excellent. And I guess that brings us in the next agenda item, which is for the questions and the answers. We already addressed some, and I know Julie has been waiting patiently. So I'll start with Julie, and then I'll get back to Gabriel and David if they have any questions. Go ahead, Julie.
Just a minute. Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Oh my gosh, I had fewer questions way back when. Now I have more. So, I've told this story in other venues before, but it comes back to me as we discuss what the gas company knew at what point. And I wonder how many other people the day of the explosion, I think I had gone someplace and I came back home and I had a message on my, on my phone stating, it was from the gas company, and it said, stay in your house, close your doors, do not go out. Obviously, I was rather shocked. So I called the gas company and I spoke to a representative, and that person had no idea what I was talking about. I said, I just received a message that I'm not to go out of my house. What happened? And that person kept saying, I don't know what it is. I said, can I speak to your supervisor? Finally, he was able to get his supervisor on, asked the same question. The supervisor said, just stay in your house and do not go out. And I said, well, my windows are open. And he said, you close your windows right now. Do not leave your house until you hear back from us. And obviously I was shocked out of my mind because I still did not know what had happened. All right. All I'm trying to say is the gas company at that moment in time already knew that there were many different types of chemicals and particulates that were being a part of the explosion. Then I'm going to move forward till today. I was thinking about, why does the Department of Health want to drag their feet or want this to go away? And what is the final objective? I mean, we all know that the only way to take corrective action with this issue and to make sure it does not happen again, and that our lives and our children's lives and grandchildren's lives are not going to continually have this as an issue, is closing down the gas company. I mean, what else? What is the final answer to this? And then I was listening to David, which I'm very proud of you, David, because I've known you for a long time. They don't know that I know you from when you were, from when you were a teenager. David and my eldest son worked together when they were young guys in their teens. But I was listening to what you were saying as far as going after the elected officials. Being an elected official, I know what pressure is, right? And so I'm wondering how much money did these elected officials get from the gas company in their prior campaigns? So there's a lot to think about. But Craig, you're absolutely correct. The pressure has to be major now. It can't be that we're going to be nice guys anymore. But my ultimate question is the health department not really wanting to be involved and really trying to whitewash the whole thing, is that they're getting pressure from the gas company. And unless the Board of Supervisors speak out and really do something, I'm not sure where this goes. The last point, when we were talking about benzene, my daughter-in-law, my youngest son's wife, was in New York at the time of 9/11. Many years later, 15 years later, she came down with leukemia. We were able to trace it back to the days that she was in New York when the 9/11, when it happened. She passed away last June, 50 years old. Okay, so this stuff is scary to me, really scary. I'm done, thank you.
Thank you, Julie. And sorry to have without your daughter-in-law.
Yeah.
Our condolences to you and the family.
Assad, may I respond to Julie?
Yeah, go ahead.
Great, thank you. So Julie, and I'm very sorry to hear about your daughter-in-law. You asked, the one question I'd like to address is you asked, I guess, do we think whether or not, does Department of Public Health actually wants to do this? Obviously, that's not something we know completely, but we just spent an hour and 20 minutes going over actions taken by them that are very much contrary to a desire to have a really good health study. Coupled with this, and I don't know if many people know this, the consent decree only spells out that public health needs to administer the work on the study. Mm. It doesn't even define that they need to have a SOC member. That was their choice. They were given a choice. So DPH has repeatedly made affirmative choices to be involved, to be controlling, and there's no other way to interpret it but other than to reduce and silence the community's influence, even though the words they speak are, we want to know what you think, we want to know what you think, we want to know what you think. But my feeling is that's just a way of keep kicking the can down the road another 30 days. Oh, we want to know what you think about this. Even though you could say, we've been telling you this not for 19 months, but we've been telling you this for 5 years. There are many of us on the CAG who have met with DPH long before there was a CAG, monthly. I can't tell you how many times I've sat in a room or been on the phone with members from public health. So there is really nothing new for them to learn at this point that doesn't require a scientific test or someone else going to pull samples or do a radiation test or testing soil in the communities. So do I really think they want to be part of this? Not for the truth. I think they want to be part of this because they for a long time have been the one group out front to minimize and whitewash events like this. And the reason the last point I'll make on that is we have been working with for 19 months, and you've seen from our presentation a number of issues that we find alarming, that you find alarming, that community members all across the valley find alarming. And yet the only comment ever made about any finding or any piece of data, any comment that in the realm of, whoa, this is bad, or this is alarming, or this is concerning, is only Dr. Simon's comment on the CBC work that Dr. Nordella did. That is the singular reference to anything actually alarming, air quotes, alarming them. The radiation, the presence of polonium, was met with a no big deal. The radiation levels were low, completely ignoring the fact that that material could be inhaled and it's scientifically known to be extremely dangerous. That did not rise to the level of them having any concern. So I just give you this in the broad, more context. So this whole presentation was about context, but context about what they're doing. It's why we have a no confidence vote, and it's why I'll personally ask, take my CAG hat off and I'll put my stakeholder hat on and say that I ask that, this board can advance a motion of no confidence. It's might be a small action, but it's an action at the direction of the elected officials that you don't feel that they are on the right path. And so I hope that we'll be able to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. And let me see, before I move to see if there is more questions from the public, Gabriel, David, any questions, comments?
Negative, not on this at this moment of time, but thank you, Craig, for your presentation. I 100% agree on what David said about the recall, and hopefully we all can work on something to progress. We all believe it is political, 100% agree with that. So I'm here to work with CAG completely, and hopefully we can make change and get some answers sooner than later. Thank you again to both of you.
Thank you, Gabriel.
Thank you, Gabriel. David? Okay.
I'm good. Thank you.
Well, I echo on what Gabriel said. And with that, if there is any questions from the public, please raise your hand.
Well,
Oh, I see Helen.
go ahead.
Okay. Go ahead, Helen.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for this meeting. First of all, I want to say I love the recall idea. It should have been done long time ago. And I have a few points, if you be patient with me. I just want to say that it really breaks my heart to tell you from the experience I have with DPH all these years, because we were on weekly meetings for 6-7 months, then it became monthly, then they disappeared. And I feel like they have let you CAG members go already, because by the meeting becoming more than once a month, and now it's becoming quarterly, and it's going to be delayed also. This is just their way of letting you guys go with all this time and effort that you have spent on it. And it really breaks my heart to see that, but that's what I believe personally. And I have no hope for DPH at all, no, at all. And if you notice, none of the original people who were on from the health department, they're not there anymore. These are all new people. They have brought all new people, and any question or concern we have, they just say, we don't know. We just don't know the answer. Anything you ask them, they say, well, we don't know, because nobody's there anymore from the original time where everybody's gone. Even Katie Butler is gone right now too. And so nobody's accountable the way it is right now. And one other thing, this is no respect to PRNC at all or any neighborhood council. Please don't take it that way. But I wanted to know, how much did you know before this meeting tonight about what's going on with the CAG and the health department? And because you guys are member of the community also, and you're representing the stakeholders, I wanted to know how much you've been participating in CAG meetings, and how much have you been involved, and how much did you know before tonight?
That's a
Thank
tough
you.
question, Helen. I'll start with that. I could say I am familiar with 75% of what's going on. And that's why we called this meeting today, to fill in the gap. I attend every single meeting that I could find, being it the DPH, the CAG, and whatever Craig and Andrew share to attend. And I would like to thank the CAG members here for all the efforts, the emails and the phone calls. They spend hours to educate me and the other members. Gabriel?
I agree with Assad 100%. I am pretty familiar with a lot of the information, but every time I hear from Craig or Andrew or the community, I learn something new. So that's why CAG is there, to gather information, present to the board so we can help and work together on this topic. And once again, as I said, I appreciate CAG and I highly value them. And without the CAG, there'll be a missing chain. So thank you guys.
And I see David stepped, but I know he's very involved. He
I'm
drags
taking
me
my-
everywhere. Oh, get it. David? We lost David.
Yeah.
But I
Assad,
know
well,
he's very involved.
yeah,
He's
why would
dragging me everywhere.
No,
He-
my wife
Hey.
made me take the dog out. So you guys are gonna have to wait, and I'll come back. Thank you.
Okay.
So, I mean, Helen, from a CAG's perspective, I'll just let me join in. We said this earlier on, as part of the presentation. We appreciate that the PRNC of all of the, really, of all the NCs that have representatives on the CAG, you represent about 400,000% more than anybody else. Quite frankly, I'm not aware of anyone from any other board, if I don't know if Jeff Hammond's on, but he doesn't count because he's a CAG member. But almost never is there anyone from either the Granada Hills NCs or Chatsworth or Northridge West. I don't think I've ever seen anyone from the council I represent. So kudos to PRNC for attending as many meetings as they can. It does not go unnoticed by us. I want to make that very clear.
All right, so I'm back, and let me answer. I think that was Helen's question. Is that correct?
Yes,
Assad?
exactly.
Okay, great. So keep in mind, we elected Craig and Miran to be our representatives because we can't come to the meetings. So we look at Craig and Miran to bring back all the information that they see fit. So we can't attend. I don't, maybe she has no idea how many meetings we attend, but I can honestly tell you that I attend probably 15 to 20 government meetings a month. So we look towards Craig and Miran for their expertise. So please keep that in mind. There are a handful of the neighborhood council members that go over and above, but there are quite a few that don't. But I'm truly grateful for the CAG. I'm truly grateful for the input, but we can only do what we can do from the information that's provided to us. And we can't go to all the meetings. We can't go to the SOC meetings. So we have to be updated by our representatives. Please keep that in mind.
Thank you, David. Okay, so
No,
with that, go ahead.
Just
Craig.
as your elected representative, I have tried really, really hard to make myself available to every single one of your PRNC meetings. And I feel that we have just recently made that more of a priority to keep you guys in the loop. I hope now you're caught up and this gets shared with all of the board somehow or another, because you guys have a lot of rules.
But Helen brought up a very, very important, I take this personal, because when somebody questions to our availability and what we do for the community, keep in mind, since I've been at the helm of the PRNC, I encourage you to come and speak on behalf of the CAG. We've made it a point, but out of that, let's just say, I'm going to ask you an honest question. You've been doing this now for 19 months. How many presentations do you think you've brought to you or Miran have brought to the PRNC?
Well, only a handful. And the reason for that is I have asked, since the beginning of the CAG, I would send countless emails to the board and your prior president asking for time to present. And none of them were responded to. None of them.
Got it.
Until recent.
Right. Okay.
Sorry, David.
It's important for me that the community knows that we are doing over and above to try and get to the bottom of this and do what's right for the community. I mean, it's, I have just as much frustration as the CAG does. So,
okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I also think I presented in public comment because that's all I was allowed. And it would be, 2 minutes. And there's only so much updating you can do in 2 minutes. So
that's correct. That's why
I did that thinking most every. Sorry, David.
Right. And that's why we've moved to allowing the CAG, your time to present. So it's good.
Right. And that's of reason, which I appreciate. And I think the board appreciates. So thank you.
But I would encourage the CAG. I think it's you hold your meetings a little bit early where most people are still working. So you might consider to try and stagger that a little bit later, for maybe the more community will show up and more community will get more involved. Just a thought.
David, you're preaching to the wrong choir, brother. We have been on this. We have been on this train since DPH started pulling this crap. And we have told them repeatedly, it is absolutely insulting to hold a meeting at 3 or 4 o'clock when the community who is working would not be able to attend. And their response to that was to schedule 4 more meetings at 4 o'clock. Welcome to the life of the CAG member. We're trying, but we don't have any power in this. That's why this no confidence vote is so important.
But the CAG can hold their own meeting. You guys can hold your own meetings.
So we hold a mini town hall every Monday at 5 o'clock.
Right, but maybe maybe you would consider holding your town hall at 6 o'clock, because most people work till 5 or 6, and then you have to deal with the traffic to get home to attend the CAG meeting. It's just a thought. I mean, that's why we hold our meetings at 6:15.
Sure, I think we're open to that.
We are, and then to mitigate we publish all those meetings on our YouTube page, and it's on our website. So, but yeah, if we could get a stronger response at 6 o'clock, and that's better for people, maybe folks that are on the participants now, put a time in there that you think would be better on Monday. Is 5 o'clock okay? Is 6 o'clock better? Let us know. We're open to it. It's a good point.
Yeah.
But you know what, David, you raise a really good point about, a 4 o'clock meeting on a Monday. You are not going to get the community involved. Mm-hmm. But yet that's exactly what DPH did. And they have been told repeatedly, don't do that. So if you don't want the community involved, have the meeting at 4 o'clock. So you see?
The only thing I might say is that to anybody's defense, because I do have clients that like to schedule meetings at Ford, but they only want to do it during their working hours because they don't want to take it away from their family time. So that could be the reasoning. I have no idea, but you know, when you have community events, I think they need to be held a little bit later. Business during business hours.
Look, we're not done. We just found out 2 days ago that they scheduled all the meetings at 4 p.m. We're in the midst of drafting a very firm response to that and many other issues. And Patty's taken point on that. So thanks again, Patty. Yeah, I mean, but we shouldn't have to battle over the minutia like that when it's such a big problem with this health study. Get the chemicals. Quit messing around with our personal time. So anyway, thanks, David, for bringing it up. You just illuminated yet another one of our ongoing frustrations with this group. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. And I second on a 6 p.m. is better than a 5 p.m. With that, I got a request from my co-chair, the Gabriel, to go to item 9 before we go to 8. And since we have the letter handy, this way we can expedite on it. Let me see. Oh, let me bring the letter. Just bear with me. So basically, 9 is a discussion and possible action to ask PRNC board to send a letter to the Department of Public Health clarifying the position of the PRNC regarding the role of the CAG and the purpose of the direct communication between PRNC and LA County DPH. And the history to that goes that there is some communication between the air monitoring ad hoc committee and the DPH, and it was really on technical questions and more of trying to understand the chemical list and all that. This is a draft letter that Gabriel and I tweaked some of the language in it. We discussed it briefly with Craig, Andrew, and David, and it's straight to the point. The paragraph in red addresses the comment made by Dr. Davis during the February 3rd meeting. I personally haven't heard it. However, somehow I missed the comment. But Gabriel and Craig and Andrew and the rest of the people shared with me the audio, and it's clearly states in there. So with that, Gabriel, you want to go through the letter, read it, please?
Yeah, should we read it or should we just leave it on the screen for people to read it real quick? What might be better?
I mean, it's feasible. I'm gonna try to enlarge it, or did I make it too big?
There you go. Perfect. Let's give everybody time for a couple of seconds, and if anybody has any questions, just raise your hand and we can move forward from there. Make it easier for everyone to read at their pace.
So basically, it's going to the LA County Department of Health, to the attention of Barbara Fair, Dr. Montu Davis, Dr. Paul Simon, Charlene Corantes, Christina Vaklek, and Christina Vega.
And a note taker can just grab this letter, or you can send it to her, correct, Assad?
Right, I can send it to and it's a part of the agenda online.
Perfect.
This is already, and I'm pulling it from the PRNC website.
And as I said, if anybody has any questions, just raise your hand, or if any comments, or as is, it's perfect, so we can move forward with it.
So the first paragraph thanks the DPH for the long-term health impact and study and all that. And we're raising that it should be people-centric, and the stakeholders can learn what can happen to them in the future. And the purpose of the letter, to reiterate that we support the Community Advisory Group CAG, and to clarify the intentions of the direct communication. The paragraph in red shows what Dr. Davis said, in which he used it as a way to move DPH away from the CAG and to have channels with the NCs directly. I'll move a little bit up. And then in the end, we're saying that we, as PRNC, support the work of the CAG and the representation and of the most affected neighborhood councils. And this is what I was earlier saying, that we met with the DPH solely to discuss the air monitoring technical specifications and the needs of the community, and to offer outreach channels to advertise to the stakeholders and to all information, the chemical list, any data obtained from all entities. So any representation of this meeting as a substitute of the CAG role is incorrect and is confusing to the public. We feel we are the bridge always for any entity, and the CAG is an integral elected officials of all the NCs. So we are all in one and one for all.
Also, the CAG almost takes role as our investigator or data collector. They collect the data, bring it to the board, and then we can take action that way. So they're a very important organization or committee for information, almost like a hard drive. So very important. CAG's role is very important to the community.
So before we get to the discussion, I put a motion that we send this draft letter to the board for consideration. Any second?
Are you making a motion or should
Yeah,
I
I
make
made a motion.
I'll second the motion.
Okay.
Are there
Let's
any
take questions.
comments? Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see.
Doesn't seem
I'm,
like
I'll start with the
I'm
board.
biased. I'm biased,
Huh?
but I support it.
Thank you, Andrew. Gabriel,
There are no questions here, so let's call a vote.
David. No, hold on. David, any questions?
Well, yeah, well, you know, I find I do have a little bit of issue with it because I think it's still narrow-minded. I think we need to, if we're going to go after one, we need to go after them all. We need to call them out. We need to call out Mayor Garcetti. We need to call out Supervisor Barger. We need to call out Councilman John Lee. I mean, they're all involved. I don't want to just be narrow-minded. We need to go after everybody. It's their responsibility to the community. We pay them. I was going to say something else, but I bit my tongue. We pay them. So I just, you know, for me to support this, I want more.
Right, and that will be part of item 8, in which
But we're
we
talking about
shuffled.
this letter, so we're
Yeah,
talking about this letter. So I'm letting you know that
Yes.
I want to see more.
Noted,
Let's just
and we'll put it
work
in
on this letter.
item 8.
So let's work on this letter first, and I think we can work on as a PRNC to go after the elected officials after. Let's focus on one, and then we'll focus on the second.
Because at the end of the day, isn't our job to support and work on behalf of the community? And if we don't do what we're supposed to do, then it belittles our efforts. So if we're going to go after one, we need to go. And I've been saying this since day one. When I go in front of the AQMD, when I would go, you know, when we'd go to our town halls, I would say, let's hold everybody accountable. And it goes in one ear and out the other. But if we're going to do it, you know, we got to do it.
Yes.
I agree with you, David. 100% agree with you.
Any comments from the public? Please raise your hand. I see already 2 hands.
Helen and Lori.
Yeah, Helen, go ahead, please.
We need to go after Governor Newsom. He's the one who has promised few of us, looking into our eyes, that as soon as he's in office, he's gonna shut this place down. What has he done? You know, the
I
operation
agree.
has gone so
I
much
agree.
more, and he's really everybody's boss too. He's Captain Barker's boss, and he's the main guy we need to go after, plus Barker, plus everybody else in the community that we have.
Yes,
I
Helen,
say
thank
if we're
you.
gonna do it, let's do it. Let's do it wholeheartedly.
I agree, Helen. Also, now with the recall and almost successfully being processed, let's look at other candidates and talk to them right before the elections, because it looks like we have another election coming up for a governor. So any candidates that might be running, let's start investigating, find out who's going to be running and get to their head and explain to them the situation, the matter for now.
Right. Laurie, go ahead, please.
Hi, I wanted to thank you for this letter. It's a really good start, I think, to get the kegs rolled back into the health study with the health department. So I do thank you for that, and totally understand that you guys don't have time to be at all the meetings. So we definitely need to do a better job than we have been of communicating with you. I think this should be the first step, but I love the energy you guys are putting into, you know, it's kind of fractured the movement to close Aliso between, say, Porter Ranch and the KEG and the PRNC and the other NCs. I mean, if we can get all of us together to put pressure on Supervisor Barger, and I agree with Helen, go after Governor Newsom, because that was one of his promises. And also John Lee. I mean, this city has always used an excuse that the facility is on county land, but Matt has always countered with that there are, I don't remember the exact amount, but I believe it might be 23 wells. Somebody might be able to correct me on that are on city property. And we are constituents of the city that are being affected by those poisons. So I love this. I mean, we need to send all of us after them, all the neighborhood councils, the KEG, Aliso Moms Alliance, Save Porter Ranch, Food and Water Watch. I mean, I'd love a renewed interest in really going after trying to get this chemical list, get a real health study, and get that place closed down so our kids aren't poisoned any longer. So thank you.
Thank you, Laurie. Craig?
Yeah, actually, Dr. Nardella had a comment. He's still
Go
on my
ahead.
speakerphone. Go ahead, Doctor.
Yeah, I apologize. I don't have a hand raised here on my thing. So, you know, I think all of the thoughts are great. And again, David, I think that the passion is great. I kind of have been banging that drum for a while. You need to find out who the master is. And I agree with you that, you know, Department of Public Health is just taking orders. It's very clear to me, even having private conversations and so forth. But all of that said, you've got to start somewhere on peeling the onion. So, you know, when you talk about a recall, it's a very big thing. But you better have a lot of talking points on why you want that party recall, because otherwise it will peter. And I highly suggest that, you know, you start with the issues. What are the issues like we had listed? What has the department done that has violated scientific logic? Numerous things. And when you do that, it makes a very compelling argument for saying, well, what the heck? Who's pushing the buttons here? And it does go back to Barger, and it might go back to Newsom. Newsom's being taken care of as we speak. And if you want to move forward with the Barger issue, I would have liked to seen that done 2.5 years ago. There is another way to get attention, and I think we briefly talked about it, and I'll share it with you. It's the California Claims Tort Act. And here's the logic of it. Each individual within your community has a potential to file a litigation by an attorney that hopefully would just basically, like the community is doing, in regards to the litigation that's ongoing. It's not going to be a mass tort. It's each individual has that ability to file a claim. The ironic issue about it is that with any litigation, you need to look at damages. And the question is so what's the damages with this? Well, we don't know yet because we can't get to the health study that would show that. And then again, that's being hindered. So there are other avenues to go to look at by individuals within the community, which might give them some help. Will also illuminate to the entire behavior of all parties involved. And I think that you got to start little and go big. And starting with one letter like this, and I'm a little concerned. I have a question for you all. It says here in one of the paragraphs, the PRNC had met with the Department of Health to discuss the air monitoring. Well, the air monitoring, my understanding as a SOC member or post-SOC member, is that this was under the jurisdiction of AQMD and not Department of Public Health. So I'm not sure how that happened, but anyways, to finish up on the other comments, you do have mechanisms that can create hope with this, but it certainly is going to need a coordinated effort by all of the councils, by all of the community. And there is huge apathy now, especially with the COVID, which is another huge issue of how the patients with COVID are going to fare from the exposure, which we did bring up at the SOC meetings. But I just want to offer that to you out there and, maybe create a committee to explore these options and how to move forward. So that would just be my suggestion to you.
Thank you, Doctor.
What about VANC? Is that an option? And would Porter Ranch maybe want to sponsor something to bring together multiple NCs?
It's possible. Because
Maybe
a
we
lot
just
of
add that to the
the
list and-
presence of CAG, the NCs, is part of the bank.
Oh, we would help you, maybe.
Right.
Yeah, just an idea is another next step. I'm sorry if
Excellent.
you're on your letter, so go ahead. Asad.
Right. So with that, let me see. I think there is one more question.
Assad, I'm so sorry. I didn't get an answer to that one question. So Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council met
Right.
with
Okay.
Department of Public Health in regards to the air monitoring. Who initiated that? I'm just curious because again, it would go to
Assad,
the
let me acknowledge the doctor's questioning on this.
Yes.
First off, so what transpired was the CAG came to the Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council. Well, really, the DPH came to the Neighborhood Council, and the CAG decided to rip them a new one. I was appalled. The disrespect at my meeting, coming from the community, coming from CAG, to anybody that comes to my meeting is disrespectful. So on that note, and not to say that they didn't deserve it by any means, but it was unbearable. So I called them and I apologized to them for what happened to them. And on that note, they said, well, we would like to at least have a discussion. And I said, we're always open for a discussion. You know, we have an air monitoring committee, and that's how the discussion took place. But it was by me being just apologetic to when we have people come to the meeting, you know, I expect the community and our guests to not be slammed. And that's how it came about. And you know what? I'd like to keep a relationship with all entities of government. You know, I don't hold one government agency over another. I hold my community. The Porter Ranch community is what I care about first and foremost. And I care about what goes on my board. And when people come to my board, if they're disrespectful, I will always acknowledge that. So I don't know if that helped you, hindered your way you look at the Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council, but that's how the discussion came out, because other than that, I had never had a discussion with the DPH until that time.
Thank you, David.
I don't question the Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council. That's not what the question is.
No, you just did. You did. You questioned how that meeting came about, and I told you.
Okay, so let me, before you interrupt, please, let me complete my thought. So the issue here is what you know now. Hopefully they used obviously that, if we look back, they used that as a way to get into you and then bypass the CAD. So if
That's not a true statement. That's a hypothetical statement.
excuse me,
That's a hypothetical question. That's not true.
in the future. So then the proper channels would be gone through. Totally understand that if you felt there was disrespect and you reached out, is the proper thing to do to apologize. But then they go to the second step and then to create a relationship, then that they're inputting upon the air monitors, of which they don't.
We have a committee. We have a committee for air monitoring. And that committee, the air monitoring committee, met with them. Not me personally, not anybody else. The committee met with them.
Yeah, it's again, it's not anything about personal. I'm just trying to state in the future, this is a mechanism of how they work. That's where the question originated from. This is how then they're bypassing the CAD, which is
no, that's not true. That's not true. And if we can bridge a relationship with all entities, well, that's my main focus. So what you're saying is not a true statement.
David, I just don't think we're listening. You're listening to me, but that's okay.
I can hear you loud and clear.
I had a phone conversation.
I can hear you loud and clear, and this is recorded, so it's perfectly fine.
So to answer you, Dr. Nordella, so the call I was on was purely on the air monitoring, and the discussion was really on the technical side. I'm surprised that you're telling me they are not what they are supposed to be, but it's okay. And the discussion was that the PRNC is helping with the RFP because of the fact we have a lot of knowledge, engineering that maybe they lack, and nothing else besides that. And now if they overstepped their authority, then that's them. But all the talks were technical.
And I think that's what's being said, is that not that you guys overstepped in any way.
Right.
That they took that. Exactly. They took that and came back at the community in a way that was overstepping. I just want to make sure we're all clear. Excellent. I think we're going around in circles, but I think we're really trying to say the same thing.
That makes sense. Can I ask one thing? Because let's
go. And then we start voting. Okay, go ahead, Craig.
So, David, it's your neighborhood council. If you want us, when we come in and we're guests at your neighborhood council, you want us to be on good behavior, I completely can respect that. I have a question for you though. When we hear myths, truths, or false statements that are made by public health in regard to the health study, how would you like us to respond? How would you like us to try and correct them?
As adults, because we are going to have youths coming on board. So as adults, I would like for everybody, not just the CAG, I would like everybody to be more respectful to each other. When you're respectful to PIA, respect begets respect. And, you know, and how you treat somebody is how they're going to turn around and treat you. And I'll play, anytime you want to sit down and look at that meeting and how they were dealt with, and that was the first time that I had, they had come to my meeting and they were attacked. And it shouldn't have been that way, because there's a way to ask appropriate questions to get an answer. And if you don't get that answer, then you need to change your direction of questioning. And you're very good at changing your direction of questioning. You know that.
Well, and I've been, okay. And we also have 19 months of repositioning, trying every method possible. Please and thank you to everything else in between. Okay, regardless, that's our meeting. Okay, I just wanted
to go on. I want to finish it. Just so you know, that conversation. It was funny because I had my wife and daughter with me. I was pretty much not even part of that conversation, but it was more of a technical conversation between Hassan and Assad we were talking mostly technical, because I had my wife and daughter in the car and I was driving, so I was basically listening. But that's how that whole conversation came about. So our focus right now is to get the right monitoring into this community to save the community from any harmful contaminants that are coming off that mountain. That's our focus. Your focus is to get the list of contaminants that have been coming off that mountain for the last 5 years. So we need to work together in conjunction to resolve all these issues and shut that mountain down.
Exactly.
Okay, I agree with everything you said, except for you put the responsibility of the chemical list. That is clearly with the county and DPH. And that's part of both of our conversations. So that's fine. Okay, so going forward, if DPH.
We don't, getting the chemical list has never come out of the mouths of the PRNC.
You guys wrote a letter. Sam wrote a brilliant letter.
That's correct, but that wasn't our main goal from the very beginning.
Sorry.
The goal is to shut it down.
Yes.
The ultimate goal, Craig, is to shut it down.
Sure.
And we're very vocal about that.
Okay, to shut it down, gentlemen, so we're all very crystal clear. You need a true health study to demonstrate health issues, or this place will not be shut down. It's not going to be shut down. Let me just finish this one thought, David, then it's all yours.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. So
I have a motion, Craig. Let me get this one, and we'll continue in item 8, the discussion.
Closing the facility follows the health. Go ahead.
Exactly. And the 8 is dealing with the health study, right? Agenda 8. So we'll keep that thought. We'll continue on it on the next agenda item.
Your meeting, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you, Craig.
Thank you.
Now I'm going to go for a vote. We have a motion. We have a second. Gabriel, your vote?
Yeah, yes.
David?
I need it to be stronger, but it should go to the board.
That's the motion. It goes to the board.
Then the answer is yes, it's going to the board.
Thank you. And I vote yes. So motion passes 3. And the letter will go to the board for consideration and to have it mailed out.
At next week's meeting, right, Assad?
Huh?
Next week's meeting.
That's David's with the agenda. We'll discuss it with him. Now we're going to move to agenda item 8, which is the discussion and possible action to submit letter about the Alicia Canyon Disaster Health Research Study based on information provided to PRNC from the Department of Health, the Community Advisory Group, and the individual stakeholders. So with that said, Craig, now continue your thought. This is the item we were discussing now. Go ahead, please.
I see your path now, Assad. Thank you for being flexible and patient. So the value in the health study is multifold, multifaceted. Not only do we need to understand for our own personal well-being, but if you think about what is going to be the watershed or the event that's going to force the PUC to shutting down Aliso Canyon, it's not just because it's a nuisance in our neighborhood. It's because it's a health hazard. And if they spend $25 million on the path that they're currently on, this CAG on a vote of 9-2 does not have confidence that's going to address the concerns of this community. I'll leave it at that. I'll try and be real concise. So a real study needs to be done, or you guys won't get your ultimate, you won't achieve your ultimate goal. Now is the time to influence it, because once that RFP is out and they're out doing the research, it'll be too late.
David, any comments on the health study? Right, Gabriel, before I take the stakeholder.
No comment at the moment.
Okay. I know Helen had her hand from the previous item, but we couldn't take it. We were in the middle of voting. Go ahead, Helen, for your comment.
Yes, David, I understand you want to be polite and civil and all that, but as you said, respect brings respect. They haven't been respecting us at all from day one. I mean, they have been backstabbing us, insulting us, as they're taking us as stupid dummy residents here, that they're pulling everything that I can name of. I'm so frustrated because I've been involved ever since I found out about the gas leak with this health department. Even in Rangan's letter, there has been no respect from them. I mean, how do you expect us to respect them? To be honest, I mean, this is very difficult for us. I told Isam once, as a woman, I honestly feel like I have been raped by them. And how do you expect me to respect my rapist?
Thank you, Helen. Next question from the phone ending with 870. Go ahead, please.
Yes. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is Sherry Darahanian. I couldn't get on the meeting through my Zoom link, but I've been listening carefully, and I as a stakeholder, have attended almost every single CAG meeting. I have not been on the CAG. I was not on a neighborhood council for a number of months, and I've observed the way the Department of Public Health interacts with CAG, how CAG interacts with the Department of Public Health. I know Issam Najm, the former president of PRNC, came to many CAG meetings in the beginning, and it just seems like it's gone from bad to worse, the chaos involved. And the fact that I agree with a lot of Helen Herfor-Atai's points. The Department of Public Health have now substituted in all these other people. I was on that town hall where only 27 people from the community actually attended, the one that happened last September. And it's embarrassing that they hold meetings at the wrong time. All these things that everybody's brought up is true, but where does that leave us today? We obviously don't have a chemical list. Dr. Nordella is not on the SOC. What's going to happen with that $25 million after all? Is this whole thing just a big waste of time? That's what I want to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. And next question to Patty. Go ahead, Patty.
Okay, I just want to say one important word here that's been brought up, transparency. Back in the summer of 2019, Mandy Bain from Public Health called me and started asking me questions. She was interviewing me for the at-large membership. And I said, well, isn't that going to be the neighborhood council reps who are going to be selecting the at-large members? And she used the word transparency. We had to take that back for the sake of transparency. And every time that they use the word transparency, which has been several times, I keep thinking of that Princess Bride meme that's the one that you've all seen. I don't think you know what that word means. I think they throw that out, but they're not using it in the correct way. They have not been transparent with anybody, including us. We've been asking about the survey, about the video. We keep getting the same kind of BS, sorry about this, but BS answers from them. And it's been at the detriment of the community. And I think Craig is very right to insist that we need to get it out right now that we want this to be a human-based, patient-based study, because else they're just going to issue whatever request for proposal they want, and then we'll be all screwed. So it's very important that we speak up, and there's been some very good ideas here, a very good letter that you folks put out to back us. And I know that you're going to do another good letter for that item 8. And again, it's very important we push for transparency, which we have not been getting. And we've been trying to get that for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. David, you want to say something before I comment? Okay. So we will need to address not only the DPH, but the other entities, the councilman, the supervisor, the governor. And I think we have enough grounds from the community and from the CAG that this has to be taken to the next level, in which our board should have either a one strong letter to all entities or one strong letter customized for each entity. We've been on hold for many months, and we're not getting anywhere with the health study. We're not getting anywhere with an air monitoring system. We're not getting anywhere with chemical list. And David and the community hinted on the recall. So maybe that's a route. But I feel that we have enough grounds. We should have this agendized on the main general meeting, so that this way we can have some time to come out with a draft that goes to the general board meeting and ready to be voted on. Gabriel, you want to say something? He's driving, I think. All
Yeah,
right.
I'm driving, correct.
Oh, good.
I'm listening at the moment.
Okay. Okay. So I think the only really action here is, David, that we will send it to the board for consideration. And I think the community have made strong case here. And I'm convinced that this must be discussed on the board. And we will work within the committee on a draft letter. We can start with attachment A and move forward with other language. Do we need a motion on that, David, or we just to proceed with it? Unmute yourself.
That's going to go to the board. We don't need a motion on it.
Excellent.
We could just bring it to the board as a discussion and possible action and open it up that way. Yeah.
That's my recommendation. Do you have any objections to that?
No, I think
Gabriel?
if we can bring both of these, the last motion we just passed and this letter all together next meeting, so everything's fresh on everyone's mind, that'll be greatly appreciated if we can make that happen.
David? Any comment?
Not at this time.
Okay. All right. So I guess both 8 and 9 are going to the board. 9 is ready, and already we have a draft. So it puts the pressure on coming out with a draft for 8. And hopefully the next couple of days, we will have something ready. Well, since I don't have any more questions, I thank the CAG members for all the efforts, for all the work, for all the volunteer hours. I know you get a big paycheck, so enjoy that paycheck. It's comparable to the paycheck we get. And I know we're dealing with a big entity. We have a lot of obstacles, but we can do baby steps. We're already done good steps today, and you have a lot accomplished. But the next level, we will need to stand together and put more force. We're at your disposal. And the PRNC is always here to support you. And looking forward to doing this meeting every now and then, so that this way we get more questions. And I thank the community members for all what they've been doing, all the stakeholders for the hours and the emails. Some of them feel we're not accomplishing a lot, but the task is too big even beyond our group. and hopefully we will achieve, within the next few months. With that, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Astar. Thank you, David. Thank you,
Thank you,
Gab.
everybody.
Thank you,
Take care,
everyone.
everybody. Good night.
Yeah.
Good night. Good night. You can stop the recording,
All right.
David, now. Okay.
I think you're the host.